We are going to roll out a little bit of a different, I would guess you would call it kind of like segment routine a little bit. So I wanted to get back into, we talked a little bit last time about addressing specifically, questions or things that guys send in about, struggling to start a business, they've started a business, but they don't have a good grasp on the growth aspect. They're still working 24/7 for themselves, like for the business, but not working on the business,
right?
That kind of thing. And, or just some general things they're struggling with in regards to work-life balance, right?
Yep.
So I thought it'd be kind of cool to actually delve into that. And, again, I'm going to preface this with, this isn't a, I know everything, you know everything, right, type thing, right. Where, you're like in the middle of kind of revamping your career, what you're doing right now too. But I think with our experience, it's fun to have, for people to have something where it's like, oh, you've done this before. Like, where do you see? Or even having an outside perspective, having a different perspective. So, got a couple. I sent you a couple. I talked to Scott from Brotherhood of Fatherhood, and he said he's good with thought it'd be a really good idea, actually, if we grab some of the questions that are business related from the group. Obviously, keep it general and anonymous because, guys to go in there ask a question in a private group setting. So what I did was I looked for ones that were topical that I see a lot. You know what I mean? So I want to start with, I sent you a few. I don't know if you thought about any of them. There was the one about, I think it was like the last one I sent you, and it was about, it was a really long, I almost want to say like sob story. You know what I mean? Like if I'm going to be a little harsh. Right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Because you read the whole thing, right? Okay. So throughout the whole thing, and I think I even cut it off because I took a screenshot of it. It was the whole thing. I don't know if you were able to go back and read the whole thing, right? But
I read it when it was posted.
Oh, you did? Okay. Yeah. I figured you would just kind of, where you are, right? So, but what I was thinking as I was reading it, right, was like there were different parts like through the paragraphs when I was reading, and in my head, I'm like, that's your fault. Like, well, you didn't have to do that. Well, like, okay, this is repeat step 75 that you should have like made a shift at this point. You know what I mean? Like there's so many different things. And then I didn't respond that way in it. I actually didn't respond to it at all, like online. I just was kind of looking at it. And by that time, 75 people had responded to it. So,
right.
But, so I thought we would kind of summarize it. So we don't have to read the entire thing. I actually don't want to read the whole thing. I thought, if you have it there, or I can pull it up on the laptop, we can kind of touch base on it.
Yeah. Boy, it's a tough one to summarize.
I think I can. I've read it a couple times.
Okay. So I want to hear you. Okay. That alone is a
well, because there's so many, like there's so many times he, in essence, repeats himself with the problem he's having.
Right.
And I'm like, and it's like 2 weeks later, and I'm sitting there going like, at what point are you going to kind of take ownership of like what's going on and take a shift, like, with what's happening, right? And go, okay, well, this isn't really a plan of what was going on. What day was that posted so I can scroll back?
1 day ago.
It was only a day ago?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm not going to say a name.
Oh, no, I know. Okay, I found it. Here you go. So it is, and I think it's a younger couple too. The guy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's definitely some inexperience there. I don't remember if he actually posts his age in here at all.
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either. So basically, him and his wife, girlfriend, wife, they moved across country, and at the end of October last year. So kind of around the same time I moved here, right? Moved across country. Plan was to start these jobs. His wife was going to be in a job that was similar to the job that she had. I'm going to summarize it with there was a expectations of a certain wage that was told, and then once they got there, it wasn't met. Not only was the wage not there, the amount of hours that they were guaranteed was less, and then there was a lot of runarounds because I didn't quite get what type of job it was, but it was client based, and they weren't getting the clients they thought they were going to get referred to. And then when she was getting clients, they were like outside the scope of what her practice is. And then, so it sounds like, so as I was reading this whole thing, it's like, number one, okay, like there's they lied about the wage, right? So there's like alarm bell number one, right? Number two, they are completely disorganized, and they are giving you clients you're not certified or accredited to handle. So if this is like real estate related, right? Okay, right off the bat, boom. Okay, alarm number two. And then the third one was you're relying on them over and over and over and over again to give you work, and you're mad they're not giving you work. Now, if that was the expectation that was set from the beginning, gotcha, right? They feed you clients, okay? But then there was this talk at the end about like we want to leave, but there's a contract to be signed, and then
like a certain you have to stay for a certain amount of time, or pay the training back, basically.
Yeah. So, see, that sounds to me like a multi-level marketing or a real estate.
Yeah, it really sounds real estatey.
Yeah, real estate or multi-level marketing on that aspect of it too.
Yeah.
So, all right. So I thought we kind of approach it from that aspect, and I don't remember, if he actually said anything about his end of it, right? It seemed like it was more about.
He said it was like a slow season for his job,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was definitely like a ton to unpack.
Yeah, it was a lot.
Yeah,
I saw when his first post, I was like, geez, it was a lot.
So, I think that's a pretty good summary compared to like where I could have gone in this eight paragraph post. You know,
it's a summary and anonymous. Well done. So,
and they talked about I forgot about this part. He talked about how a month after they moved there, they took a whole month off for the holidays.
Yep.
Yeah. So, again, I don't know their financial situation.
Right.
Sounds like it was pretty tight to begin with, right?
Yep.
So maybe not the best time to do retirement, especially after you just move. Having moved states twice, it's expensive.
Yep.
You know, even if you're budgeted out on the whole thing too, there's a bunch of one-time costs you pay. There's a month there where you're kind of overlapping. Last month rent, mortgage, first month rent, mortgage, whatever it is you decide you're doing, right? You're kind of double. There's a month there where you're kind of double paying to live in, two places.
Yep.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. I mean, the first thing that stands out to me is clear expectations, and especially if there's a contract being signed.
Right.
Either you signed a really crappy contract that is not clear on things like wages. Seems like if you sign a contract, wages should be in there.
Right.
So right off the bat, it's like, okay, well, were you super excited and just rushed right through the process, and you didn't take the time to take a peek at the contract and say, well, hang on. Because if it's a contract, it's kind of, I mean, whether it's employment or independent contractor.
Yeah.
If you're being promised something, that's where it should be.
Yeah.
And so I think the lesson right off the top, easy for everybody, is, hey, if you're going to sign a contract, make sure that contract includes everything you're being promised.
Right.
Number one. And number two, anytime there's some kind of I mean, I get it if they're dumping training into you. It's not uncommon to have something like, hey, you're going to be here for X amount of time, to make up for that. I even do that in the military sometimes. But like, you better make sure all your answers all your questions are answered, and you have every detail ironed out if you're going to sign something like that.
Right,
like if there's that kind of an ultimatum in there, then it's like, okay, well, I'm going to make sure that I'm being taken care of in that as well.
Yeah, like everything's clarified.
Yeah. I mean, why the money isn't in the contract, or if it is in the contract, then they shouldn't be able to back out of that?
Well, and my question is on that one was, and to kind of clarify a little bit for people, they were told it was going to be a certain rate, and then once they got there or started working or training, they were like, no, it's this rate, which is a little bit less, and it's an hourly wage, and then it'll be the rate we said it was going to be in 6 months. So to me, it sounds like they didn't read the contract right, like clearly. You know what I mean?
Either they didn't read it,
or they didn't ask the right questions.
Exactly.
So that's part of it too as well. So now, and again, that's the beginning of the whole thing. My thing with this thing is, you moved across the country, and then you immediately took a month off, admittedly during his slow time, right? But you knew that you were going to have this kind of training ramp up period, right? You know your own like financial situation. If you're in a situation where hey, the sooner we kind of get rolling here, the better it's going to be.
Right.
Maybe don't take a month off.
Yeah.
Maybe take a week off. Right. So that's a little bit of an ownership side of it, like that you need to own. Right. And then the relying on the aspect of like, they told me this, they told me that, they told me that, they told her this, they told her that, and then they didn't follow through, then nothing happened here. It's if you're taking a job that is somewhat, and this sounds like sales, right? It sounds like sales.
Yeah, sales.
They're going to give me
some
clients.
kind.
It sounds like
it.
sales. So it sounds like some type of sales, mortgage, real estate. It sounds something of that nature. So if that's what it is, well, it doesn't matter what they tell you, right? If they don't have clients, there's nothing to give you. So they can't guarantee it.
Right.
They can tell you like, hey, our plan is to do this and feed you that, right? And again, who knows? Maybe they really kind of like this company oversold the whole thing, really sweetened the pot, trying to get more people, because right now we have a labor shortage in general.
Right.
People aren't working like menial jobs. They don't want to. They're working on their own, doing their own thing.
Yep.
So it's harder to find, good work. So good labor. And, so maybe they overpromised a couple things, right?
Yeah, but
Exactly. See, I'm thinking the same thing.
if they are saying all these things and you're going to sign a contract, all of those things should be in the contract.
Yeah.
I think that's like the number one lesson to take away from that is, hey, moving forward, if you're going to get a bunch of promises from people and you're signing a contract of some kind, not just, make sure those promises are in the contract. Otherwise, you have absolutely no way to push back. Like he's talking about, I think he was talking about potentially some legal action or whatever to kind of wiggle out of the contract. It's like, if that's the kind of thing you're binding yourself into, you better make sure that the things, it just seems like if people are promising a lot of things, you gotta get it in writing on some level or put it into the, obviously if there's a contract, put it in the contract, because people can say all they want.
Right. And it sounds like, and here's the thing, it sounds like she's an independent contractor, right? Like not a W-2 employee. So barring a few minor things, like the contract, as an independent contractor, you can leave anytime. Contracts for independent contractors can have durations put in there, right? But something like this, but the thing is with those kinds of contracts, as soon as somebody breaks it, pretty much to null and void, And again, this is not me giving like hard legal advice. It's just, I think people need to understand when you, just like an employee says, like your job is at will, if you have something like that, if you're an independent contractor, they can't stop. Here's the thing. She can stay. She can stay. If she's an independent contractor, she doesn't have to like technically give her notice.
Right.
Okay. But she can go work somewhere else. They can't stop her from working somewhere else.
Right.
You know what I mean? So she can say, like, I never said I quit. If you guys have legitimate clients you want to give me, right, based on what it was you guys were doing and my training is done, you paid me for my training, fine, I'm here.
Right.
But just go do something else, right?
Right.
And if they're like, well, you can't go work anywhere else, like, nope, can't do that as an independent contractor. I can do that. You know what I mean? Like I can do, pretty much whatever I want. Every state has their own laws to an extent, but in regards to that, you can't limit what you're doing there. So
right. And oh man, totally, that train derailed.
Yeah.
If you're an independent contractor as well, so I was gonna say that if they're paying for your training, as an independent contractor,
well, they could have what's called like a clawback clause, meaning usually somewhere in there where like if they buy a company or they put you through training, there's an agreement you pay. Now here's the thing: this thing's normal. Like if you want to get a CDL, like if you want to be a truck driver, okay, and a company hires you and says you don't have to have a CDL, we will put you through school, and then they lay out the contract and say like this is what it is. Here's the cost of the school. It's $5,000. You pay it back through your first 12 months of pay. We take out $600 a month, right? That's like $5,000 in a year, okay, to pay back, the school, right? You have to agree to stay with us for a year, right? Otherwise, people will just go there for a month, get their CDL and bounce, right? You're going to get paid a little less, right?
Yeah.
And, or if you quit, the total amount due for the schools is due like when you quit, right? And then it becomes a debt if you don't pay it, right? Yeah. Okay, that's totally normal.
Yep.
So if this is the case that happened here, right? It's normal. Now, if they broke the contract, then you can, and I feel like I'm being a dead horse here, but if they broke the contract, then like, look, you just inform them, say, look, you told me this, it's here in writing, you didn't do it, this is null and void. If you guys want to go to court, you want to sue me for whatever the training is, all right, cool. Like, well, let's do it. You know, if that's what you want to do. I doubt they're going to do that.
Yeah, that's the benefit of a contract, though.
Yes,
that's the point.
Yeah.
Is if all of that he's complaining about is indeed in the contract, then there's really no reason to be freaking out other than what am I going to do next? And this is a great example of why it's good to have more sovereignty, where you are not relying on, especially as you move to a whole new place.
Yeah. Now,
starting a whole new thing.
What he does? Did he?
He said the business, but.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't want to go into too much details.
Yeah.
There.
Yeah.
So,
but you know, the more sovereign you are,
oh, that's right. He did say
going to be. You know, the better you're going to be because you're not sitting there going, "Hey, I need you to give me clients." Mm-hmm. Especially if you're an independent contractor.
Yeah.
And that's something you've been doing.
Mm-hmm.
Then you should probably make sure you have multiple options for clients and stuff so that you're not sitting here relying on that thing. One.
Let's say. She needs to stay there for 6 months, but they're putting her through a training program. Like, let's say it's some type of accreditation program. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's worth it to stick it out another, like, whatever. Yep. Let's see. They said they moved October 31st. They've been there almost a month now, like, as far as work goes. Okay. Mm-hmm. So, or 2 months. Stick it out for a few months and then get the accreditation, if that's what that is, that, like, certification. And, you know, if that's what it entails, then you can leave. And you have that accreditation, right? And you can go do whatever you want.
And what else are you going to do, too? If you just moved to the area, you might not have a lot of other things going for you. So, you know, you're better off rolling. Now, I don't know if because there's no clients, they're not even getting the income they're supposed to be getting at all. See, that's not clear.
And my point is, and I'll kind of wrap it up with this, right? So we can go to the next one, is the hourly wage is under $20 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
So what they're looking for and they expected, like in a full time, they're talking like, because he was saying that 20 hours a week is like the most they're going to guarantee.
Right.
At this point, you can go get a job at a fast food place paying $20 an hour because right now there's such a labor shortage. So it's not like there's a job shortage out there, like to not have an option to go make the money you're not getting that you thought you were going to get this place. Right. Look, if this was a gig that like guaranteed $50 an hour, you're kind of shit out of luck because there's not a lot of gigs that are paying that much right now if you don't have a certain type of education or experience, right? Okay, but you know, $18 an hour, like there's in and out. You know what I mean? Like Chick-fil-A. Like, you know,
I'm pretty shocked.
I'm not kidding.
The
like,
manager jobs.
Like
some of these fast food places like.
No, dude,
this
is
15,
entry.
16
no,
an hour
the entry
like,
jobs are like $16, $17, $18 an hour. Management's like over 25.
Yeah.
You know? I'll tell you right now, any UPS, with my experience, I'm giving I'm not a fan of the company, but I will giving you a free plug right now. Okay, anybody listening to this, you are struggling for work and you just need income in general, walk into any UPS hub.
Yep.
Okay, and say like, I want to apply as a preloader, right? Because they churn those freaking puppies out, right, left and right, and that's the people who load the trucks. Okay, it's hard physical labor, right? It's fast paced. It's about 5 hours a day. You usually generally start between 3 and 5 a.m. Okay, but you're done by 10. You have full benefits.
Yep.
It's union. It's $20 an hour on average. And the rest of your day is free, and you can have a second job, go to school, like whatever you want. They will actually reimburse part of your schooling. I am not sponsored by UPS. I'm just saying. I'm saying it's like as a like shit hit the fan, I need something, and I can get hired tomorrow. UPS will like in Seattle, they used to tell us like when I was in ops management there, hey, when you're out and about, when you see people like that are kind of down on their luck, like let them know like we're hiring $15 an hour, full benefits. This was in 2016, 2017. Yeah.
Yeah,
basically they were having us recruit homeless people because they need bodies because they just burn through it so fast. People are not used to that kind of a pace, And but yeah, so my point is to simplify the answer. It sounds like it's a pretty easy income to replace with the jobs that are out there right now looking for people, like especially like restaurants. They're paying maybe $15, $16 an hour now. Where they used to pay like $8, and then you get tips. Yeah.
Yep.
So you can replace that income pretty easily. And if I remember correctly, they're on the West Coast. They're not. It's not like they're on the middle of nowhere.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So,
income level is going to be
so they'll be
better
okay.
overall. Yep.
Okay. And lastly, this is a perfect example of why you need to learn how to leverage your skill set, not to like completely replace your revenue, but
right.
To figure out how to make extra income.
Yep.
You don't want things to get tight. So, all right, next one. I felt like we went a lot. It was big, man.
There was a lot in there.
I wanted to try to get through it.
I feel like there's a lot of speculation that automatically happens.
For
with
sure.
That too.
Yeah. I was like, interesting. Yeah. Okay, cool. What was the next one I sent you? I'd put my phone up, but it's up there recording. So
it is. Well, so there's the advice to your old self, your younger self.
Oh, yeah.
Like
okay, read that one or give it a little bit of a.
So, what advice would you give your 24-year-old self looking back, especially in relation to relationships with women?
Yeah. This one is totally applicable to like everything, whether it's relationship and women, business, money, like you name it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why don't you start with this one since I went to this one first?
Gosh.
You're what, 36?
34.
34.
Turned 35 in
God,
March.
You little baby. I always forget how much younger you are than me. I'm 42. So
yeah, it's interesting.
Okay. So 10 years.
Yeah, 10 years ago.
Tell yourself, and knowing all the shit you've gone through in the last 10 years, right? Like, what would you tell yourself?
Jeez, when 10 years ago was.
Where to start with?
Yeah, start with a good hard 2x4 to the face. And then, actually, 10 years ago was actually a really pretty rough time in my life. So the first thing,
a lifetime, dude, for a lot of people. Like 10 years, a lot happens in 10 years. It's not a long time, but like a lot happens.
When especially from like 24, 25 years old to your mid 30s, that's a ton.
Yeah.
So, I think in relation to relationships with women, there's no specifics here. Are we talking like getting married? Are you already married? Things like that, So nowadays, I got married at 19.
Yeah.
But nowadays, 24, 25 is going to be that time when you're probably settling in to get married. And so, the first thing I think is, hey, don't be in a hurry,
Yeah.
But I think the biggest thing when I look back is I would tell myself, number one, identity.
Yeah.
Like find your identity outside of everyone else and everything else. Because when I look back at myself as a 24-year-old, I was finding my identity in the affirmation I was receiving from everyone else. I was finding it in my work. I was finding my identity in all of these exterior places. And so when work wasn't going well, guess what? I wasn't doing well. When my marriage, or say, if, for somebody who's in a dating relationship, if that person is speaking things over you or treating you a certain way, then your identity goes with it.
Okay.
And so I think as a young man that's like trying to step into who he is, and this could cross over into entrepreneurship, like anything we talk about here, like your identity needs to be between you and God. That's that. Stand as who you are. Get that settled, because if you are sitting there, especially when it comes to women, if you're going to women, so often we go to women because we are trying to answer this question in here of,
or fill a hole,
Yeah. Oh, do I have what it takes? Am I strong enough? Am I good enough? And whether that's work, whether that's relationships, that's truly comes back to your identity. Because if you're not settled in who you are, you're going to go bouncing around. And then, especially in relationships with women, like he's asking, you're going to end up sitting there going, oh man, Jane here thinks I'm a jerk. Well, that must mean I'm a jerk. Mm-hmm. And then you spiral out of control, or they break up with you and it's like, oh, who am I outside that? And we've all watched guys who do that. Like it's the end of the world, because they lose what turned out to be, whether they realize or not, that their identity was wrapped up in their relationship.
Yeah.
And it could be the same thing with the job. And so I think that's the big thing. Settle your identity, because everything else flows out of that.
Yeah.
In my opinion, once you have that settled, and for me personally, when I have heard who I am and my identity settled from God, like nobody can take that away from me. And then now suddenly I am a lot stronger when I'm going through the ups and downs, whether it's my wife, whether it's, losing my job, I am able to stand strong because I'm not relying on those things to tell me who I am.
Do you think it's possible for somebody at 24 to be able to go through something like that?
To kind of establish their identity?
Yeah. Like, do you have, like, so, and I'm throwing this out as more of a like another angle /
Yeah.
devil's advocate, right?
Yep.
Okay, you have, on average, most guys aren't even like fully developed brain wise till like 25, like legitimately like frontal lobe development, right?
Yeah.
Like that's why we make like dumb impulse control decisions. And when you're in your 30s, you look back at your early 20s, go like, what was I doing? Like, why would I do that? Like, that was stupid, right? Yeah. I totally hear what you're saying, because, and I'm in agreement with a lot of it, because, you know, like some of the biggest issues I had in my late 30s came from me not having a foundation set and life built upon this rock of who I am, what I will do, what I won't do, what I will tolerate, what I won't tolerate, what are my non-negotiables, like those kinds of things. So I think that's like, it sounds like that's what you're saying. It's more about like when you say identity, it's not about like at 24 you should be settled and have everything figured out and sound.
Right.
It's more of like building a bedrock of like, I'm going to, whatever I do going forward, it's going to catapult from this. And then when I have issues or problems or I fall or I falter, I can come back to this. Because if that's not there, when you do falter, like you come back to nothing. You know what I mean? Like there's nothing to come back to and go like, okay, let me come back to home base and rebuild. Like, well, home base is gone. So
exactly. Because like I think at 24, it is possible to be settled in no, you're not going to know, you're not going to have everything figured out. You're not going to have, you know, this is going to be my career. I know this 100% because I'm 25. I mean, I'm sure all of us kind of thought we might have had that figured out at 25. And that never proves to be true usually. But I would say it's a matter of, first of all, values, character, things like that. It's I come back to the spiritual piece of, I can either be wrestling with, I mean, every one of us has had some level of disappointment, failure, trauma, you name it, through our growing up years. And those things are shaping us up until, say, you're 24, 25. And so you can either let those things speak to you and tell you who you are. And I can say for my own story, when I was 24, 25 years old, I believed that, like at a deep level, I believed I was a failure. I was incredibly insecure. I felt like I couldn't do anything right. I was carrying this message that I've been hearing since I was a child, that I wasn't good enough, strong enough. I was a failure. I was always going to fail. I carried that into my marriage. Well, guess what ended up happening in my marriage? I ended up pinning that onto everything my wife said. Well, you must just think I'm a failure. She wouldn't even be saying that. And yet I was assuming that because I believe that about myself. And so that's where I think, whether it's through, you know, a deep relationship with Jesus, whether it's counseling, but moving through those avenues to get to a point where it's like, yeah, if everything else falls apart, I am happy in who I am. I know what I stand for. I know what my values are. And this is who I am, and I'm confident in that. I think anybody can get to that. But as for us as fathers, it kind of comes down to, you know, how are we raising our kids and training them? Because let's face it, a lot of guys, the reason that they're not settled in that is because either A, they never realized they needed to be, or they got up to, you know, their 30s and it's like, I still want to be a kid, basically. I don't want the responsibility. I don't want to deal with any of that, just kind of avoiding it. And so, you know, I think a lot of that comes down to parenting. So that is tough, but that's what I think.
Yeah, it's good. I think most people I talk to that are doing better in their late 30s, early 40s, and get this question or talk about this subject, the average answer I've seen more often than not tends to be less about like a specific item, you know, besides joke around about like invest in Bitcoin. But you know, it tends to lean more towards like, if I can guide myself with like my with a skill set, an understanding of like a skill set and my outlook on life. You know what I mean? It's just like, if I can adopt this a little bit earlier, like how much better off I would be, you know, that kind of thing. The pain and stuff. I struggle a little bit with it, you know, because by no means am I done or set with everything that is where I want to go or accomplish, or what my wife and I want to do, or what, I mean, God, my oldest is 13, and I got 4 more underneath that, right? So, you know, still got a long way to
got
go.
a way to go.
Right. But in regards to where we are in our life, in our almost 20 years, like May is our 15-year wedding anniversary, right? We are in the best place we've ever been in our life, both in regards to where we want to live, the community we're part of, financially, what we do for a living, the independence and freedom of getting to choose what we do in our schedule. You know, we're both home like 90% of the time. So it's great. But all that came from a lot of fucking heartache and hard lessons. And it doesn't mean it has to come that way, right?
Right.
It's just a matter of like, I think about where I am now, and I struggle a little bit with, and you know, I think part of this is also like, this is a hypothetical question, and I think I'm adding a little bit too much realism to it, you know, as if I'm going to hop in the freaking DeLorean and go back. But it's I know, right? And some people are like, "What's a DeLorean?" It's like, "Fuck you, go watch Back to the Future."
Dude, there's a guy on my street who has an exact DeLorean like the movie. Yes, it is amazing.
It's a shitbox and doesn't run.
Oh, it runs. Yeah, he was zipping around. I was driving behind him. I was
like,
man,
not DeLorean. It's just a
this guy.
That car was garbage.
He's like keeping it out in his barn or something.
Oh, geez. I just tangent. We one of the guys that works for us that we just hired. He's super young in our group thread. We got guys that are like ex-military, law enforcement, you know, like 40s, 30s, whatever. And somebody made a Tango and Cash reference. Have you seen that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you're old enough to know that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So it just chimes in. Googling now. I'm like, fuck you, Googling now. I'm firing you for not knowing this movie.
Yeah.
No, it was funny. I was like, oh, you're 24. Like, you don't even like. Yeah. So you were born when this movie came out. So no, you're shit. Yeah, it was it was hilarious. Yeah. So but yeah, I think what I would tend to do is kind of go along that similar framework of what you were saying, which is actually, I know what I would say because I'm saying it to my 13-year-old right now. I know exactly what I would say.
Yeah.
I would tell myself, if you want to get anywhere in your life, you need to figure out how to address your part in everything that happens in your life. You know, it's that ownership aspect, right? Okay. If it's like right now, we do this kind of work with the kids right now where it's like, well, they did this and she did that and he said this and he did that. And then and for a while it was, I had 5 people yelling. So I just told them all shut up and go to their rooms, take a break, but nothing got solved. Now it's, okay, but what did you do? What do you mean? I'm like, what did you do? Like, what's your ownership in that? I said, because it was an argument. So there's like, you had an ownership in that argument. You had a role in that, right? So tell me how you could have done that better. Oh, so it's my fault. No. I want you to think about what happened, and I want you to think about how you could have approached that differently.
Yeah, that's good.
That's what I'm asking you. I'm going to go ask her the same thing. I'm going to go ask him the same thing, right? So I'm not blaming anybody. And so tone matters too.
Yep.
So I'm trying to get the kids, and it's going to be a process. I know it, right? But I'm trying to get the 13-year-old and the 11-year-old, more so them right now than the 9-year-olds, right? But to go, hey, you had an argument here. What was your approach to it?
Yep.
And they're getting the concept of not like what it was their fault. They're getting the concept of like, I'm going to go talk to the other one, right?
Right.
But like, if you can change and understand like how you approach things, and then I can get them to understand and then get them to change a little bit on how they approach things.
Yep.
Well, then don't you think your interactions going forward with them and then everybody else in your life is going to be better? Oh yeah. Okay, cool. So I would tell myself that, which is learn how to take ownership of your role in everything that happens in your life. Like not take blame and ownership for somebody else doing something vindictive and manipulative and abusive and shitty. You know what I mean? It's more of like, yeah, I saw what they did. What could I have done better in that situation? Right. That's all it is. Like, you could look at it that way, right?
Yeah.
What could I have done better in the situation in regards to like how I was driving today, like, how I performed at my job, how I talked to my parents, how I interacted with my wife, how I talked to my drill sergeant, how I approached this task I didn't want to do at work, you know what I mean? And I shit on it because I was justifiable in saying it's not my job, or I attacked it with a purpose. And in the end, I may have not gotten the best result because it's not what I'm skilled at doing. Right. But my peers and my bosses saw like I'm in an effort, and they know like, hey, he's going to give it the best shot. You know what I mean? Like, so like mindset, like that's what I would tell my younger self, right?
That's
not
awesome.
to be so like proud and like, I tell the kids right now, like, you're right. Tell him what he wins. Nothing. How much of it? All of it. Like, good for you. You won. You won the argument.
Nothing.
Yes.
Yeah.
You win nothing. Like, so it's like, you're right. Good. Now what?
Yeah.
Like, tell you what, I use this analogy. Go across the street when you're not supposed to, right? But go in a crosswalk. Like, do you have the right of way? Yes. If you hit by a car, whose fault is it? The person driving. Who's dead? You.
Yeah.
You're right, but you're
right,
dead.
but you're dead.
Or paralyzed, like
right. Doesn't really make much of a difference
What's
at that
the
point.
price of being right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like that's the
interesting.
biggest lesson I'm trying to instill with them. Like if I had to say, like, that's the biggest struggle with the kids. So like this question of like what you would tell your 24-year-old self, I already know because I'm trying to do it to my 13-year-old son.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So
it's interesting. Obviously Jocko, Extreme Ownership, great book.
Right.
When he started doing the Warrior Kid books.
Yeah. Those are great.
We got them for the kids right away, and it's nice to have a shared language in that, where actually even early, my two girls will bicker back and forth, and so I can say, hey, you're saying a lot of things here, but I'm not seeing any ownership here. Like, she knows what I'm talking about because she's read the Warrior Kid books. It's like, well, I don't really see you taking ownership of anything here. Yeah. What did you do here? And to begin creating that language, so then there's kind of that frame of reference moving forward. Yeah. Because most of us just want to point at everybody else, especially kids.
I used something recently that actually worked really well with my son, where like I saw the light bulb go off. I walked him through a process and explanation of one of the things I do, like career-wise, and even went in kind of like I showed him logistically, like, hey, here's how the money flows in our company. Hey, here's this person's role.
Right.
Hey, here's this person here. Oh, why are you over there? Well, because they used to be here, but they kept sucking and kept screwing up. So now I kicked them over here, and I can't rely on them anymore. So they think they're right, but they're out of a job now,
right?
Like in contract work, right?
Yeah.
And he said, oh, I said, but this guy, not only does he want to do the work, he decided to start his own business, right? And now we're using his business, and he gets to make the. And I even showed him like we make this much an hour, like when we bill for this bill rate, and we're paying him this much an hour. We pay these guys this much an hour, but we're paying this dude this much an hour. And then he keeps like $5 per hour, but then pays his guys, and they're all making like $35, $40 an hour. So if his people are happy. And then he's got 30 people. So if he has 30 people and they all work like, and he charges us like 200 hours in a week of billable rate, right? I said, how much money did he keep? And he goes, my son's like, I said, did he work any hours besides like running the company? He goes, no. I was like, yeah. So he just made $8,000 that week off the top of commission from the work he got. And the only reason he's getting that is because he's shown us that he's reliable, he's honest, he's responsible. He goes out of his way to be like communicative. And so I told them, these things I talked to you about your skill set, I don't care if you decide to be a NASCAR driver, a firefighter, an engineer, a janitor, it doesn't matter. It's like your skill sets that you need to build will like apply across the board in whatever you decide you want to do. Yeah. So when he saw that, he's like, yeah, it's so cool.
Yeah.
So it was good because
cool.
It wasn't just me just talking at him, like I showed him like my spreadsheet. I showed him like our payroll. I showed him like, within reason, I wasn't giving away a bunch of like information I shouldn't be showing, but like I gave him like a look into like what was going on. Right. Yeah. And I showed him a couple of text messages like in our group threads, like, for like certain operations we have where like some guys will say this and he goes like, why would they ask that? That's stupid. And I said, exactly. But this is a 42-year-old person.
Right.
Okay. So now is that where you want to be in 30 years? No? Cool. That's where you are right now at 13. It's justifiable. You're 13.
Yep.
It's not justifiable at 42. Right.
So what do you need to do?
Yep, exactly. So showing him some real life examples.
That's good. Yeah. That's good.
All right. Next one. What was the next one I sent you? Let's do one more. We're almost at an hour here. I like this kind of hour rate for our shows.
This was an interesting one.
Yeah, which one was this one? I'm trying to remember. 'Cause I saved like 9, and I think I sent you 3 or 4.
3.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
So this is the pregnant wife.
Oh yeah,
really saying
yeah.
really harsh things.
Yes.
Kind of up and down.
So I wanted
swings,
to right.
Like
So this is one I wanted to approach from the viewpoint perspective of going through this while you also are starting / running your own business, because it happens a lot.
Right.
I also have personal experience with that.
Well, you get to start this one off then.
I opened my first gym so actually let's get into a little bit of what, that general idea. A lot of it was, it's their first baby, right?
I don't know if it said.
Was it their first one? Can you show that one? If not, I can give some ideas, because it doesn't have to be first one. When I opened my gym, it was their second.
Yeah, it doesn't say first. It just says
pregnant, or she's had the baby.
She is pregnant, and it's the mood swings and everything in it.
And she's just going off from left and right.
Yeah, left and right, and then just trying to figure out.
I remember this one now. Yeah. Okay, so I remember I responded to this one with a couple things. One was I said, so basically what he's doing is he's struggling with the fact that, because I remember we commented back and forth a little bit on the page. This is on Brotherhood of Fatherhood, and he actually said it was their first kid, so they don't have any kids yet. Mm-hmm. I asked to clarify some stuff. Said something about she was on antidepressants or medication for anxiety, and then she can't take it with her pregnancy, and some other stuff too. And basically, long story short, he basically stated that she was mad at him and going off on him for every little thing under the sun. And she's pregnant, and sounds like she was like 5 or 6 months pregnant, and he doesn't know how to deal with it. He doesn't know how to handle it.
Yep.
She's trying to do all this stuff too. I want to look at this from a standpoint as well as going through starting a family, or if you have a pregnant spouse, and maybe it's your second or third, and you're also in the middle of starting your business.
Right.
So I'll approach it this way. I opened my first gym in 2010 when my wife was 9 months pregnant with Adelaide. So we had a 2-year-old, Elias, and she was ready to give birth any day now to Adelaide. I signed the lease for the studio a day before we left to our Alaskan vacation when she was 7 months pregnant.
Oof.
Yeah. So, yeah, and what happened was, because of that, I spent the majority of our vacation on the phone a lot, dealing with equipment manufacturers and the real estate agent and all sorts of stuff on the phone back and forth, and then with my business partner. And so obviously, right off the bat, got a baby come in, we're on vacation, and then I'm on the phone a bunch, right? So that alone is it's not good. That gets into that whole work-life balance, right? And then coming back, got back to it, opened the gym a month later, and I basically made the commitment of I'm going to take a week off once the baby comes. And Adelaide was born 30 days after I opened the gym. So it was I'm going to bust my ass and get this thing up and running, and then get it somewhat operational by itself to where when I take a week off, and this is all personal training, so it's appointment based. I'm not going to shut the gym down for a week, that kind of thing. So, but I almost resented having to take a week off, although I liked it. I didn't resent my wife or my daughter. I just was annoyed with having to do that, because I have this insane work ethic, and I get things done when I put time into it. Problem was I was putting too much time into, going, with the work, the gym and stuff. Now, we know you start a business, it involves a lot of time, sacrifice, and energy, right? So this gets to what you learn, hopefully, when you get older, which is work-life balance with family doesn't equate to 50-50 time. No. And so that's where I struggled. I struggled with the concept of if I spend 10 hours of work, I have to spend 10 hours with my family, which is impossible.
Yeah.
Or it was when I was at work, I was always thinking about being at home and not and being annoyed about not being home with my kids.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I was home with my kids, I was constantly in the background thinking about things that needed to be done that day, that week, that month for my business to grow and to do whatever I was doing in client. And then my clients, this was at the birth of cell phones. Like as far as like the smartphones, so 2010, right? So Facebook been around for about 4 years. So I had these like personal relationship with clients, and they would just text me all the time. And like, dude, my clients would text me like, "Hey, I'm at a restaurant. What should I get? Like, I want a burger," you know. And I would give them nutritional advice.
Yeah.
My wife's like, "Would you fucking put the phone down?" You know.
Right.
Right. And in my head, I was like, "No, this is what makes me successful. This is why I have clients that stick with me for 5 years."
Right.
Because I have a personal bond and relationship with them. I have high client retention, which is in personal training. It's rare, right? So I didn't know how to like, that's work, that's home.
Right.
Right. So for this guy, I would say the first thing I would and people in a similar situation, I would come at it from this way is, number one, understand your wife's pregnant. Okay, so right off the bat, that alone, I'm not saying your wife's crazy. I'm not saying
there's just
but
a lot going on there.
I'm gonna say it in the crudest way possible. She is growing another human being inside her body. Right?
Yeah.
You know? So imagine you having to do that for 10 months, right? Because everybody says 9 months. It's not. It's 10 months. It's 40 weeks. It's about 10 months, right? Yeah. So that alone is like, holy shit. Like that's a lot. That takes a lot out of you. And it like hormone changes, your brain, like your body's changing, like everything, right? Okay. So like have some grace and understanding.
Yep.
Right? Okay. Number two, what is your approach to what's happening, right? Like what's going on? Like how are you supporting her, right? Supporting does not mean kowtow. Supporting does not mean whipping boy. Supporting does not mean whatever you say or do. Yes, ma'am.
Right.
That's not what supporting means.
No.
How are you supporting her? You know, and more importantly, are you guys on the same page communication wise?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, if you're going to start a business or you're running your own business and you got pregnant, whether you planned on it or not,
right?
And I would tend to argue, barring a few very specific cases, if you got pregnant, you either planned to get pregnant or you planned not get pregnant. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So either way, right? Pregnant, now you own that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now what's the plan? Right.
Yeah.
And if the plan is like, well, we're going to have a baby and then you just keep moving forward and live day by day. Okay. Well, you're setting yourself up for a world of hurt.
Yeah.
Right. Especially if you run your own business.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. I think the first thing that comes to my mind is, a question of what were things like before she was pregnant?
Yes.
I would wonder, was it already kind of up and down? Communication sucked beforehand?
I asked the same question. Yeah, that's funny you said that. Yeah. I asked him, I'm like, what was it like before?
Yeah.
Sounds like there's some history here. Yeah.
Because then the next thing I would say is, number one, ownership. Number two, intentionality. So ownership in, okay, have you sat down with her and said, hey, I feel like you are doing these things to me all the time. What can I do to meet this need or that need, or, communicate on some level, find out like what's at the root of all of this,
right? And
then take ownership of what you can. Because often you'll be getting attacked or feeling like you're getting attacked constantly. But then if you can stop and detach from the emotional part of it and just say, hey, let's talk about this, then there's probably going to be at least a handful of things that are absolutely true,
right?
Maybe not necessarily being communicated in a healthy way, but there's true things, and you can take ownership of that and say, hey, you know what, you're right. I haven't been doing this. I'm going to work on this, or I'm going to work on that. And that alone can be a huge shift, especially when emotions are going up and down. It could really swing the other way of just like, oh, it's so awesome, And so that, but then the intentionality, like you're talking about the work-life balance, and you're talking about your phone and stuff, like, I have found that it's not necessarily the amount of time, the quantity of the time, it's the quality. And so being intentional and like,
and that's what I know now. Exactly.
Yeah. When you are not working and you're deciding to focus on your family, focus on your family.
Yeah.
Be intentional in what you're doing so that you're maximizing that time that you are spending. Because starting a business, working from home, especially working from home. I feel like working from home is like this false sense of like, we can be around each other all the time. It's not really how it works.
Nope.
And so you have
it's actually more frustrating.
Yeah.
If you don't set boundaries. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And so being intentional in boundary setting for work, and then being intentional in, hey, when I'm not working, this is what I'm going to give to you. And so for me, one of the things that I've had to work on with my wife is even my watch. Like I might not be pulling out my phone, but my watch notification goes off.
Oh, you have a smartwatch.
I got a Garmin.
Fuck that.
Yeah. And so it buzzes and lights up. And it is like instinct for me to go, even if I'm not responding to it, what is it? And so what I've actually started doing is...
My wife has one, yeah.
Oh, really?
She's Apple, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So with the Garmin, I can't really respond to anything on it. I just get a notification.
Yeah, you get notifications, yeah.
Yeah. So I literally put it into sleep mode now if we're spending time together, so that like I'm not having... I mean, it's just not even a temptation at that point, because I don't even know it's going off. Because even if I'm not looking at my phone, I'm still getting distracted. And it's disrespectful. And so I think intentionality both in your boundaries for work and then I would say with this specific situation, intentionality in communicating and getting to the bottom, because you can either be like, she's crazy, she's hormonal, and you just leave it alone at that.
Right.
Well, it's not going to get any better. And the reality is pregnancy is already practically traumatic as it, on many levels it is. She's already going to be different when she gets done, especially if this is the first kid. And if you are just letting it pile up the whole pregnancy, and she already feels like she can't count on you, you're not communicating,
be so much worse.
Then you're going to postpartum, and then moving forward, like it's all downhill from there if you're not going to begin to engage it. And so, take some ownership and be intentional.
Yeah, no, it's good, man. It's it definitely is something where you can easily play like the victim. You know what I mean? Like I'm getting shit on. I'm getting, she's taking it out on me. It's like, cool, let's swap. Like, and again, I kind of go back to this. I have a newfound kind of not only respect, but like perspective with like having a teenage kid now, which is, it's like, cool. You have it all figured out. Awesome. Like my job is done. You may leave now.
Yeah. Enjoy your life.
Go out to the world, right? That whole thing. But it's that thing where from the pregnancy side of stuff with with your spouse or significant other or even a partner that's not, maybe you got somebody pregnant who's a friend or somebody you barely know, but now you're sharing in this journey, right?
Yep.
And if everything you come around with is like what she's doing to you, right? Well, then cool. Swap roles. See how that feels.
Yeah.
Right. If that's how you're starting, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that like there needs to be this like I'm the whipping boy of this like relationship. That's not what I'm saying at all. No. It's like what I told my 13-year-old son. What can you do to own the things that you can control, right? So if you can control being supportive, if you can control when you're home, putting your phone away, right? Or even if you work from home, committing to these times I am not going to work. Like I am off the clock, right?
Yep.
So good example. I work from home. One of the things I do is I'm director of operations for this large like security company, and I manage the Pacific Northwest. So my phone goes off all the time. Part of it is they're not even for me. I'm part of like these group threads I have to do with different job sites, right?
Right.
Okay. They're not even for me directly, but I have to monitor them, right? Okay. There's other people in the company. It's not a massive company, but we have like a large clientele. So what I do is when I decide I'm going to focus on family time, I will text my partner and say, hey man, can you be up on responding to the comms? Because I'm going to be like out of commission for the next 3 hours. I'm not responding to anything.
Yep.
Awesome. What that does is then I send 2 more texts to our like higher end, like client, like project managers, with clients that we have who are used to calling me or texting me directly.
Right.
Say, hey, for the next 3 hours, call John. right?
Yep.
I'm going to be out of commission. I'm going for a hike. There's no, and they all know I live in Montana, so it's really, I mean, hell, I could be home. I could just tell them like, hey, I'm going for a hike today. You know what I mean? And they know like, oh, you're going to be out in the middle of nowhere. You know what I mean? You have no cell phone reception. Hey, I'm going ice fishing today. There's no cell phone reception, you know? So they know. And doing that has not only made a huge difference from like success in the business, whereas they're not like, hey, dude, we try to get a hold of you, because in that business and in a lot of businesses, people think they have access to you 24/7.
Yep.
Even if it's not a 24/7 business, right? Okay. So, but if you set the expectation of like, I'm unavailable for the next 4 hours. Okay, gotcha. No problem. Who can we contact if we need to get a hold of somebody? Okay, contact this person. So if you literally spend 5 minutes preempting a couple things and say, hey, get a hold of this person if you need something. And then you talk to that person, hey, can you be the one who responds to stuff? Because I'm going to be MIA for the next 4 hours. And then you let your partner know, okay, that's how you're successful in the quality and not quantity, right? Okay, I'm spending more than 4 hours a day at work, but I just gave my wife and my kids 4 hours of uninterrupted, filtered, like totally just like, hey, I'm here with you guys and that's it, right? Yeah.
No distractions.
Yeah, exactly. And again, that is the epitome of quality versus quantity, right?
Yeah.
Because they will take 4 hours of that versus 72 hours of like, what'd you just say? Wait, oh, okay, hold on. No, you were telling me something. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Anyway, so.
Right.
Hold on.
Yeah.
And no, I literally was doing it earlier today with Anna Marie when I was working. You know what I mean? It was, now mind you, it was in the middle of our workout. It's not like we were on a date, right? But she was in the middle of telling me something. And as she was talking to me, I was responding to a client, and she was like, "The fuck are you doing?"
Yep.
I go, "What? I'm listening." She goes, "You're talking," and I was talking out loud what I was saying to the person while she was talking.
Oh man!
So just and again, so that's the epitome.
Great example.
Like,
yeah.
And that was so simple where I could have just put the phone down, waited until we were done with the conversation. Right. Or until she went and did her next set and then responded. 'Cause she's not going to talk to me while she's squatting 300 pounds. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, anyway.
I was just going to say, too, I feel like this guy should read No More Mr. Nice Guy.
Oh, that's a good book. Yeah.
Because it's the part of the ownership piece is what have you been doing potentially to, in a sense, create the situation you're in where she feels like she can treat you like that?
Yep.
And so, No More Mr. Nice Guy. I could go on about that book for a long time.
It might be cool to start the next episode on that one before we start getting into questions. So,
yeah, it's a really good book.
Cool. I like this, man. This was fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think we should kind of keep this going for the next few episodes for sure, at least. Just I like it because it gets the juices flowing on thinking about some of this stuff. And again, it's like I will ask questions and get advice from people who I talk to people about, like family advice for people who don't have families, just to kind of get perspective. I'm like, hey, what do you think about this? Because somebody has an outside perspective and they're not, it's a bird's eye view and they're not in it.
Yeah. When you're detached emotionally, it's a totally different perspective.
Yeah. So cool. So if you have questions on anything, I know this podcast was born out of like, entrepreneurship and in business, but, we can address it as well too, if it's family related, but anything in that realm, starting a business, trying to grow a business, or like our first one where it's like, this is what you would call, and again, I'm a little, hesitant to say this, but to an extent, like you're in a job where you're a wage slave, it's literally like hour by hour, and, that would be something where we can talk to you about how to kind of either A, shift from that completely, or B, how to start building something that's beyond that. So now you're, you've started a second income growth stream, Yeah. So, that's cool. All right.
Awesome.
Till next time.
Until next time.
Cool.